Okay, let's get started. So I'm Jeff Ellis, the Chief Operating Officer at Wherefour, and we'll talk a little bit about Wherefour is, but first a couple of housekeeping items. We're going to be launching a poll here once we go to the next slide with just a couple of questions just to get a sense for the folks that are attending, what their pain points are, and a little bit about their compliance needs, just so we have that info to kind of guide the presentation. We're going to cover essentially what food, cosmetics, and nutraceutical manufacturers need for compliance certification. Then I'm going to show you what it looks like inside an ERP, and then we're going to leave plenty of time for questions. There is a Q&A box in your Zoom there. If you send questions in, we will either answer them in line or at the end. If we get too many of them, we can certainly follow up afterwards and send emails as well. So without further ado, let's move on here. So a very little bit about Wherefour. We are an ERP that focuses specifically on companies that have compliance requirements. And so you can see our main verticals at the bottom there, which are food and beverage, nutraceuticals, cosmetics, personal care, chemicals, folks that have compliance, traceability requirements, and are usually subject to some standards that are passed along from some sort of a government agency and then managed by, folks like SQF and people like that. So that's a little bit about Wherefour. We are going to hop in for a very brief demo on some compliance points in the system in case you're a smaller company that's never used an ERP, just to give you kind of a sense of the types of things that can be accomplished in there. Um, so if we look here, we have companies in the webinar from all over the world. You may recognize some of these acronyms here, but basically there are different regulatory agencies with slightly different standards. But while they all have slightly different standards, the underlying data needs are typically very similar. They all have traceability, batch record, supplier approval requirements. Things like internal audits and document control are universal. We find that about 80% of the requirements across the certification bodies overlap, and there may be some nuance to some of them. But again, the things that I mentioned earlier are all common across all of them. They're all basic requirements, and they're things that any regulated company should be accomplishing. The message in this is the system that you use. Um, if you, for instance, start exporting to Europe at your US company, the standards are pretty similar. You can generally use the same system. There'll be different reporting and documents that need to be filed and slightly different regulations sometimes, but for the most part, you can keep doing what you're doing with regard to systems, and then just the reporting requirements might change. Um, so just as an example, how an SQF certification might work, that's the US entity. The first step, which is pretty much the heaviest lift when someone is taking this sort of an effort on, is putting together a food safety system, a HACCP plan tailored to the facility's process. A lot of times, folks will bring on a consultant. There are software products that will build HACCP plans for you, but none of them know the ins and outs of the specific hazards in your environment. They might make some suggestions and things like that, but there is going to be a lift here that's customized to each facility because the hazard analysis is unique to your specific company. It's not going to write all of that stuff for you, but again, it will certainly streamline the process. And a lot of our customers have hired consultants on the front end here to kind of expedite that process. Because if you are a smaller company, do it. Usually, you're not going to have the head count, a specific food safety person or a cosmetic safety person to take this on. Usually, there'll be fractional consultants that do this sort of work. Um, Second step is to register and choose a certification body, basically. And so you are registering with, in this example, SQFI, and choosing a certification body to conduct the specific audit. The first step in that is a document review, which is almost like a remote audit where you are getting requests for documents and things like certificates of analysis, batch records, lot history, those sorts of things. And you're going to give that to the certification body that's ultimately going to perform your on-site audit. This will basically typically reveal any weaknesses that you have so that when someone comes on site, you will have been able to correct those things before they conduct the actual audit. So it's basically a pre-audit um, exercise that's going to get everything in order on your end, let you know where any weaknesses might be, enable you to be fully prepared for the audit once that happens, and minimize the chance of any corrective actions or a failure, of course. The next step, which a lot of times causes a lot of stress, but if the procedures have been followed on the front end and the document review is thorough, this can be a relatively smooth process with the auditors. They're going to come on site, walk the floor, verify that you're actually doing what you say you're doing, that the processes are in place, that you're documenting things, and that in real time you're documenting the quality checks and the analyses and the paperwork that you need to document in order to prove that you are doing the things that you're doing and that you have material lot control and traceability and batch records and those sorts of things. The follow-up to that audit is going to be a certification decision. Um, and so basically you'll get certified, hopefully, conditionally certified pending some fixes. So you're gonna have a chance to get basically a pending certification. You fix some things, prove that you fixed them, and your certification is good to go. Um, or you can certainly fail if, again, if you have systems in place and you've gone through the document review, you're prepared for the on-site audit. A failure in the audit process is relatively rare if things were done properly on the front end. And then, of course, your job is never done. The purpose of this is that you're going to get recertified every year. So you do a lot of work on the front end to get certified the first time. Once you put those things in place, while it is work, people get used to them. It becomes part of workflows. You're documenting things. People are doing them every day, as you'll see in a couple of minutes. If you embed these things into your processes, in your production workflows, your receiving workflows, once people are used to doing them, you're basically lining yourself up for the audit on a continual basis. So the recertification process should be relatively pain-free if everything's done on the front end, and then you continue to do the things that you line up to do during just the course of business. So um, let's hop into a quick demo here quickly, and going to hop into Wherefour here and make sure. So we're in Wherefour here. We're going to go through a few things. We're going to go through a quick mock recall in the system and then show you a couple of ways that the things that you need to do, your control points and things like that, can be embedded into workflows. So one part of every single audit is basically a mock recall. And what that means is you need to be able to produce the required materials as part of a recall inside of a certain period of time. That might vary slightly by where this is happening, but essentially it's usually within a few hours. And so in our system, for example, let's say, let's go into the activity log here. And what an auditor might do is go in and say, identify a specific stock lot of a raw material in the system and have you, so let's say your supplier for these cocoa beans, for example, this demo account happens to be a food manufacturer. This could apply to cosmetics, personal care, anything. But basically, your supplier tells you that this specific stock lot CB003 is tainted. And what you need to do is perform a mock recall. So you would go into the recall tool here and call up the specific item, which as you recall is cocoa beans. We're going to put this specific stock lot in here and generate the recall report. So as you can see in a few clicks here, because we've performed all of what we're supposed to do as course of business, we have the affected lot here. We don't have any of that left in stock, but we do have some bulk chocolate that we've made out of it. And we actually have some some more, another lot of bulk chocolate that we made out of it, and we have a finished good that hasn't been shipped out yet. But most importantly, we have all of the shipments of any finished good and every order that was affected by that raw material. This could be hundreds of orders potentially. You could have made 15,000 chocolate bars with this lot of cocoa beans and ship them out to 10,000 customers. You're going to be able to get all that data with just a couple of clicks in the system. So basically that mock recall becomes an exercise in plugging it into a tool that gives you all the information that's needed. And if we were to go into, they also want to see, let's say any C of A is attached to that lot, you can plug it in here. And if you've stored the C of A in the system, it's tagged with that specific stock lot, and we can go in here and actually view that document and print it out for the auditor. So you've got everything in one place all together, and you can call that all up in a couple of clicks. From a traceability standpoint, I'm going to show you a really handy tool that we have in the system that we called sequencing, basically. And essentially what this enables you to do is automate your lot coding system. So let's say we want our raw material lot codes to be the SKU of the product. We'll put a dash in there. We will put the Julian date, which is when we received this in the system. Very common that folks will have that as part of their lot code. And then maybe another dash and then an incrementing random number in case we receive multiple deliveries of the same SKU on the same day. So essentially, we've got the template for the lot code that's going to be applied anytime we receive raw materials into the system or anytime we produce finished goods in the system. You can have multiple lot code schemas. So nobody needs to remember what your lot code schema is. The system's going to automatically attach it in the system. Couple of workflow items here. So from a control point process, so let's say we're buying eggs from a vendor and those come on a refrigerated truck. Anything that comes on a refrigerated truck, part of what we need to do is to take the temperature of that truck to make sure it's within certain parameters to know that that material has been preserved in transit. We've got a refrigerated truck temperature test that we've set up in the system, and we can inject that into the workflow. So if I go back to the vendor's area and we've queued up a purchase order to receive eggs in the system. So we've got these eggs that we received into stock. The system's going to automatically put those on hold pending us going and clearing that control point. So if I go in here and we've got a couple of steps to this, we've got the test here. It must be below 40 degrees to pass, 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So let's say it comes in at 37. The test passes here, and we can capture an electronic signature. We could actually, if we wanted to, take a picture of the thermometer to really prove that we did this. And then once we save that, that's going to clear it. If we might have another truck inspection that it's clean, there's no sign of pests. So we basically clear those, and oops, we didn't say we performed that test. And again, we can capture a signature there. So the system, if you don't perform it properly, is going to stop you. So now that we've cleared those particular control points in the system, they will be documented in here. And so we've got the actual tests in the system that we've performed here, and we can see that it has been cleared in the system. And then if we go back to the purchase order, it will have been cleared and the inventory is available for use in the production area. So that's an example of injecting a control point into a workflow. I'll very quickly give you an example on the production side where this might happen. So what we've done is you can set up in the system what we call workflows. And what those do is the same sort of thing. Let's say we've got a process where we're going to make bulk chocolate. Ultimately, we're going to make cases of chocolate bars. But once we make the chocolate, we need to perform some tests as part of that to prove that the bulk chocolate is within some quality standards that we set up in the system. And those can be anything you want. They can be pH tests. In certain industries, they might be a temperature test. And again, across industries, you can customize all of these things. So you inject basically these control points where I make this product goes on hold pending this testing. If this test clears, it's available for the next step in the process. If for some reason it fails, that material goes into quarantine. Ultimately, you can dispose of it, or maybe there's a rework process where you can pass the quality test. So on the production side, it might look like this, where I've got these set up. I've made, in this example, some bulk chocolate in the system. I've got this post-production process where I need to resolve these, and I won't go through the mechanics of doing it since you've already seen that. But once I clear these post-production checkpoints or control points in the system and they do pass, you can see right now I can't even run this second step. So it does a hard stop in the system. And auditors love this when you actually force people to do the things that you're supposed to do to comply with the standards. Because what that means is you can't even go on to the next step without doing it. Now in our system, it is flexible enough to for a supervisor to be able to override this. Like let's say you know these things have passed, but you don't plug it into the system. You can have a supervisor override this if you want to set it up that way to make it available for this step and then plug the data in later. But the point is you can have hard stops in the system that have control of inventory basically so that you can have control points in the system and that they are documented. And when an auditor comes in, you can very quickly go to a specific stock lot of eggs that were received or or uh, or a stock lot on a specific work order of the chocolate quality check that we did. That again can be anything you want it to be, that you've documented it. They can print it out. You can show that you did it. You can show who did it. You can show the exact date and time that they did it. So all the data that you need to pass an audit is all in one place. You don't have it sitting in a file. It's not on a clipboard. It's not somewhere else. And there's no way you can't do it because it is forced into the workflow. So that's a quick overview of a couple of ways that you can inject these quality checks and lot traceability and control into your workflows. And if anybody has any questions, would be happy to field those now. If you have any that are kind of too long to answer, certainly feel free to email me or go to our website to learn more. We do have, well, we are not consultants in this industry. We do have a list of folks that have worked with us and with a lot of our customers to implement food safety plans and different compliance plans for cosmetics, nutraceutical companies. A lot of the same traceability standards hold true across those industries, as I mentioned. Um, so I'll wait a minute here and see if any questions pop in. Um, Question about lot coding. So someone asked if there is a vendor lot code. So I did show you the lot code that the lot code generator that we have in the system. Some companies like to log the vendor lot code when they purchase materials in the system. You certainly have the flexibility to do that. You can put it in when you receive the material. It'll get tracked like any auto-generated lot code. You could also scan it in if there happens to be a barcode on the container that comes in. Question about bulk cameras, probably from a current customer, bulk photo upload feature soon. Uh, if you can drop me an email, the person asking that question, I will check on that specific functionality and where it is in our feature request list for sure. So shoot me an email. Question on, do we have an MS Business Central integration? We do. We integrate with a number of accounting systems. So you can think of Wherefour as the inventory detail subledger of your operation. So anything having to do with inventory and compliance happens in our system. And then we report that data to accounting systems. So we do integrate with Microsoft Business Central. We integrate with Sage Intacct, QuickBooks, Xero, and some others. So a very wide range depending on your accounting requirements. My email address is here in the presentation. It should be showing on the screen, but I will type it into the chat here as well. It's jeff@wherefour.com. Does your system track expiration dates, and can I enter the expiration date at time of receipt? You can absolutely do that. So I can show you. It's always better, in my opinion, to kind of see something rather than us just telling you it's possible. So I clicked really quickly in there, but basically what I did was I went into a receiving action here. You can see this lot code is grayed out to answer the question from earlier. If I wanted to put the vendor lot code in here, I can scan or put that in. If it's grayed out, it just means the system is auto applying a lot code. But to answer the most recent question, let's say this material expires at the end of August, you attach that expiration date when it comes in. We are also GS1 barcode compatible. So if you have a GS1 barcode and you scan that, it can fill these data fields in. So typically those will come with expiration dates, lot codes, quantities, weights, things like that. Those can get scanned into the system, but you attach this expiration date, it would automatically get attached to this specific lot code and traced through the entire life of that inventory in the system. Okay, that is the okay. It looks like I'll wait another couple of seconds, but that is those are all the questions that have come from everyone right now. So again, so feel free to visit our website. We appreciate everyone coming. For those that answered the poll, we certainly appreciate that as well. We have a bunch of other webinars. So again, we try to do these in 15 or 20 minutes. I know it's pretty quick and abbreviated with a limited amount of information, but everybody's busy and nobody wants to sit through an hour and a half webinar to go through some things. So we try to all of our webinars will be 15 minutes or so, crammed with a bunch of information. So you can check out our website or our YouTube channel for other webinars as well. And we'll certainly follow up with an email with a recording of this. And again, everyone, thank you very much for attending. We appreciate it and reach out with any questions and have a great rest of the week.